everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I am doing the Finally Fall book tag. I was tagged by With Cinnamon Please, which is the cutest YouTube name I've ever heard of, but she tagged me to do this, and I'm really excited because, guys, I never get tagged in anything. I feel so cool. So I'm going to be doing this really cool fall themed book tag that I really like because it's got a lot of different kind of questions and prompts that most tags don't have. So let's just dive on in. So question number 1 is, in fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. For this, I'm going to go with The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. Now, this is like an adult mystery thriller novel that is just so incredibly atmospheric. This follows a main character who's kind of down on her luck in the money department, and all of a sudden she gets a letter from an attorney saying that her grandmother has died and bequeathed her this enormous estate and a ton of money. And she's like, oh, that's wonderful! Except this woman's not my grandmother. But she goes ahead and decides that she's gonna try to swindle these people into getting the money. So she travels to this creepy estate and meets all of the other family members, and everyone has secrets, and there's like a creepy maid who lurks in the shadows, and the entire manor is just this like gothic, dark, rainy, dreary. It just has such a great atmosphere. But anyway, she discovers a bunch of secrets along the way. Number 2 is Nature is Beautiful, but Also Dying. Name a book that is beautifully written, but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. For this, I have decided to go with Sadie by Courtney Summers. This book, you guys, is so good. It is so good. Probably top 5 best book of the year, hands down. I think everybody's going to be talking about this at the end of the year, but it is just, oh, it's so good. This is a YA contemporary mystery where we follow the perspective of one girl and a podcast. Our main character's sister was murdered, and so she kind of takes herself off the grid and runs away to avenge her sister's death, while in another timeline and in another point of view, we follow this really awesome podcast that is telling the story of these two girls. If you can, please read this, but listen to the audiobook. It is so good. It is a full cast narration. Every single character has a different voice. But not only that, there's like music in the background. There are sounds. So like when you're outside in a night scene, there's like crickets sounding, and when you're inside a diner, you hear plates clattering and like a register opening and closing. It was so cool. It was unlike any kind of experience I've ever had. I loved it so much. It really felt like you were listening to a podcast. And at the same time, the main character's chapters, Sadie, Sadie, just her point of view was so rich. It was so deep, and it's very dark. Her sister does die in the beginning, and then, you know, she goes through this kind of descent of getting revenge. So it does deal with a lot of themes of grief and loss and revenge and things like that. So it is very dark. But boy, is it written good, and is it good. Number 3 is Fall is Back to School Season. Share a nonfiction book that taught you something new. For this, I am going to go with The How of Happiness. Now, this is a book that I actually read in my senior year of college. I took a positive psychology class, and it was one of the coolest classes I ever took. But this book is basically about how your interpretation of the events and world around you really affect your happiness. And actually, it says that up to 40% of your happiness is dependent on your perspective, which I think is really interesting. I try myself to always keep a positive attitude no matter what life throws at me. So I really wanted to read this, and actually I'm kind of a nerd because like I read the whole thing even though we didn't have to read the whole thing for school. But this was just really interesting because it talks about being grateful and your perspective and how you interpret situations, and then backs it up with scientific evidence, and I just really enjoyed it. So if you're struggling, you know, finding the bright side or looking at the glass half full, then maybe pick this up. Number 4, in order to keep warm, it's good to spend time with people we love. Name a fictional family, household, or friend group that you would like to be a part of. Okay, so everybody says this, but the Weasleys. I just feel like their family is so warm and so happy, and like, yeah, they have drama all the time because of dumb Percy, but like, they're so happy, and they're always eating, which, hello, I love to eat, so I would fit in perfect. Number 5 is The Colorful Leaves Are Piling Up on the Ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. For this one, I actually grabbed all from the same series, and that is because the series of unfortunate events has a beautiful spine collection. Number 6, fall is the perfect time for storytelling by the fireside. Share a book where somebody is telling a story. And speaking of the series of unfortunate events, I have chosen this for number 6. To me, the series of unfortunate events is just the perfect book to curl up with when you want to be cuddly and warm in the fall time, just because it's still kind of dark and dreary and gloomy, kind of like the weather outside, but at its core is a beautiful story of like family and like siblings and just being heartwarming and cute. And it's just, it's nostalgic for me. So to me, I'm gonna equate that with comfort and cozy. So definitely this one. Number 7 is The Nights Are Getting Darker. Share a dark, creepy read. This is actually a little bit difficult for me because I don't really read scary stuff. My imagination is way too crazy. I will be up all night. Funny story. You guys remember that movie that Daniel Radcliffe was in that was like the woman in black, I think is what it's called? Let me tell you. I was scared of the dark for years after watching that movie. Years. Every time I saw something dark and creepy in the shadows, I was like, oh, it's the woman. She's come to get me. Like, this is it. Like, R.I.P. Lindsay. And then like maybe 6 months ago, me and my husband were talking about it. And he was like, you do realize the woman in black only kills children. And I was like, huh. Yeah, I guess so. So this is why I don't do scary stuff. Like, I can't. So instead, I'm going to recommend kind of semi-creepy, mysterious, atmospheric reads. And the first one is going to be The Hound of Baskerville by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now this book might be old, but dry it is not. This is a short, I think it's a novella maybe? I don't know, it's really short. It took me like a day to read. But it kept me on the edge of my seat. It basically follows, of course everyone knows it follows Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and they've been called to this manor estate in the countryside where a body has been found with no sign of death, but there are these big paw prints all around the body. And of course there's this lore in the town about hellhounds and how they came out and they were like, this guy was like doomed and they were coming to get him. But of course Sherlock is very logical and he's like, no, there's a real murderer of flesh and blood and I'm gonna find him out. The great thing about this story is you go through the whole thing kind of being like, oh my gosh, like, is it supernatural or was there really a human killer? And you never know until the end, and it's just, it's gripping. It's so incredibly gripping, and there's so many suspects and you never know who did it. And I love it, and not enough people read it, and I think they're kind of scared because it's like a classic, but it really doesn't read like it. And again, it's like, I don't know, like 70 or 80 pages, whatever it is, it's gripping. Read it. If you're still too scared of the classics, yeah, I get it. I'm going to recommend Night Film by Marisha Peschel. So Night Film is about this discredited reporter who is trying to follow the story of this infamous director who's kind of like part of this cult classic horror film making, directing. Wow, I'm doing a great job of this. But anyway, this man's daughter is found dead, and some people think it's suicide, but the reporter doesn't believe it, so he's investigating to figure out what really happened. The story is told in like a mixed media, so you get some like reports, you get pictures, you get like webcast screen things. It's all pretty interesting. This is another book that kind of towed the line between like, is there a real killer or was there a real reason for this person's death, or was it actually something a little bit supernatural? I thought the construction of it was absolutely brilliant. To me it was enthralling. I know some people didn't find it that way, but I loved it. I was at the end of my seat until the last page. I didn't love the ending like that. I can't talk about it, but I didn't love the ending. But some people would like that type of ending, so like, it's still great. Like, I would give every single page in this book, maybe except the last page, like a 10 out of 5 star. Like, I think it's great. So check this one out if you're looking for something a little bit more creepy. Number 8 is The Days Are Getting Colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. For me, this has to be The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery. Now, this story follows a very depressed and grumpy man who is very much so down on his luck. He's had a very bad couple years in his life. And then everything kind of turns around when the surprise package is left at the front door of his bookstore. I really don't think you need to know more than that to go into it. Just that brief synopsis, and then just know that it's like an ode to book lovers. This guy owns a bookshop. He's very almost kind of like snobbish about his like literary fiction, which is funny because it kind of pokes fun at the people that are like that. It's got tons of passages from classics, and it talks about famous authors and things like that. If you love books, you'll probably love this. This is just such like a heartwarming, and if not heartwarming, it's at least like heart-touching. Like, it's gonna hit you. But it's just, it makes me so happy. The messages and the themes around family and love and like not giving up is just so beautiful. I think it's under 300 pages, so it definitely counts as a short, heartwarming read. Number 9. Fall returns every year. Name an old favorite you'd like to revisit soon. So don't laugh at me. But for me, that's gonna be Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Okay, I love this series so much. I know it's like kind of like cliche and like a lot of people don't see it as good fiction, but I don't care. I love this so much. This was my first introduction to high fantasy, and I really feel like who knows if I would have ever read high fantasy had it not been for reading this when I was like a little baby Lindsay, like 13. If you weren't aware, Eragon follows the story of a young boy who finds a dragon egg, and then the egg hatches and there's just a whole bunch of shenanigans that ensues because dragons are kind of illegal, and it's like this whole big thing. I adore this. I love it so much. It's so warm and nostalgic, and I love the characters. And like, real talk, this was written by a 15-year-old boy, and it has some of the strongest, most powerful women ever written, let alone in YA fiction, but like by a man, I have ever read. Like, there is a strong woman of color that is like running the world in here, and I was like, a 15-year-old farm boy wrote this. Like, props to his mama raising him right. Number 10, fall is the perfect time for cozy night reads. Share some of your favorite cozy reading accessories. Well, for this, it's definitely my cat and my dog because they're always around me. I actually call them my writing assistants because whenever I'm reading or writing, they're like literally on top of my body. I also love my new writing mug that I got when I took a weekend trip to DC. We went to the Politics and Prose bookstore, and it's a mug completely surrounded by writing books, which is so cool. So I like to fill that up with coffee or tea or whatever I'm drinking. And then of course I have this really nice mermaid blanket my mom bought me. I actually have two because I'm such a nerd. But yeah, I love my mermaid blanket because you just like slip inside and like shimmy it on up, and it's so cozy. Number 11 is spread the autumn appreciation and tag some people, and I will go ahead and do that down below. So thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what some of your answers to these would be down in the comments below. I can't wait to see your answers. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!